High school teachers KRISTA MINTZ and BRITTON are explicitly teaching their students about the 4 categories of questions and encouraging them to proactively question both one another and their teachers. In addition to teaching math and science, MINTZ and Young coach their high school's competitive engineering teams. During this reflective conversation, they compare their experiences and highlight what they believe to be benefits for students.
Do you see students like picking up on the way that you ask questions and doing something similar with that within groups, or do you notice that your modeling has had kind of like an impact too?
So I've noticed I need to pay more attention to my modeling. I've noticed that they're paying more attention to the way that I'm asking questions, and so if I have modeled, it may have been, showing them maybe a way that wasn't perfect, and and I've had one clarify a question with me before that I thought was pretty clear. That obviously it wasn't to the student, so I thought that was pretty cool, and it's definitely made me want to be more cognizant of the way that I'm interacting with them on my questions.
You'll notice the students who may not have ever asked a question before kind of at least using some of the verbiage that you have used, and that's a start for them, and that's on our level and on the students' level also. So I kind of have another question for you. We went through and we taught the types of questions to students, and I know I did it more as a reflection, kind of what questions might you ask in any given task. And the students kind of reflected through the questions, and then I kind of asked what was the purpose of that question. And then from that purpose, they thought through of where would this question possibly be categorized.
After they shared with each other, without communicating afterwards, they listened to each individual, and I said, what questions would you want to ask? And so they all wrote down their questions, and then we kind of went through and grabbed some questions and got them on the board, and I said, so let's talk about these questions that you would have wanted to have asked. And that's kind of where we went in, and we kind of looked, was this an exploratory or a dialogic? Was this sort of self-questioning? And all 3 kind of came out at different points. There were students that realized that they probably should be asking some self-questions before they start trying to explain their ideas. What if it were me listening to this, what would I need to know to make sure that I understood what my idea is? And then we had others, in that same vein, I guess, through exploratory questioning, I've heard this idea, but I don't understand it. What kind of questions do I need to be asking of them now to elicit a response that helps me further my understanding of their idea? Yeah. And then through the dialogic, really asking questions of one another and understanding why is it important that I understand their idea before I try to respond to them. And they're now working in that next activity, and I am seeing some better communication. And they're not with friends this time. They're with people that they normally don't work with. And it's usually that means communication's worse. It's not better because they're more uncomfortable with each other. But it's going a little better, and I'm kind of excited to see how that changes the product that comes out of those groups.
Are you noticing that this is helping the more reserved students a bit for either reason?
I think so. I think as it's going along, it is. I haven't seen as big of a change as I would like, but I think they're starting to see that because people are listening more to their questions or listening more to their response to a question they've been asked, like they're feeling a little more comfortable. It's not a quick judgment.
I've noticed an impact with the reserved students who may not know where to start. That STEM gives them at least something to look at. I think a little bit of that goes not only to our work with questionings, but also environment. The environment, I think, structured because, and it's a smaller group that we were working with at that time, but it was also laid back, and it's also the environment of, I may not always have the answer, you may not always have the answer, but we have to work together, we have to understand, and that kind of just, over time, that frees up to, well, let me try something. I guess overall the environment and the work that we've done, where it is responses, not answers. It's no hand raising kind of thing. It's just kind of really set the stage for I'm valued here. Whereas I don't know maybe if they feel that in those other areas. I made the statement of, well, as teachers, we try to get you guys to ask more of the exploratory questions. We feel like that's really where learning happens. is when you get to explore, and then also see each other's perspectives on it. And a student said, I feel like he said, and he was very cautious. He said, I feel like teachers don't like when I ask exploratory questions. And I was like, oh no, is it me? Have I? Because I know I've taught this student for about 2 or 3 years. I'm like, have I ever made him feel small because of that? He says they like when we ask academic. I feel like if they would ask us more dialogic, we wouldn't have to ask as many academic. And I'm like, okay. And then, because they're seeing our perspective more. And so I just asked him, I was like, why do you feel that teachers aren't okay with you asking exploratory? And it's because sometimes we get in this realm of, we have X amount of things to do and so on, and it's hard for us to think about something a little bit differently. And that was a good reflection of me, because I love exploratory questions all day long in the programming and the robotics classroom, but do I hinder students in the math classroom with those?
I think I absolutely probably do in biology.
Yeah.
I've got this pacing that I'm trying to follow, and I've got this content I need to cover, and there may be times where a student is trying, they do find that spark, and they're trying to learn a little bit more through exploratory questions, and I think at times I've probably brushed them off a little bit because I'm trying to take care of this other stuff that I'm concentrating on.
And in the environment, we're supposed to be the content masters in those classes. And it's like, you're asking me some of the connection I didn't see. Yeah. Am I okay with that sometimes? And so that's...
And I can see that as a fear of some teachers, is the I don't know. And they're asking the fear of getting that question that you don't know. And at the high school level, we are supposed to be our content masters.
So that was kind of humbling for me and self-reflective. Have I done that to that student? I hope not. Anyway, that was pretty cool. I'm just learning that there's nothing wrong with being much more intentional with thought process and questions, things that I just always assumed were just part of.
And in the lab, it does.
class.
It happens so naturally all the time. We never thought twice about it. And then after going through it and trying to be more intentional about it and sort of challenge our students to be more intentional about doing it themselves, I think that's when you start seeing a little bit of a change. Not because it wasn't happening before, but now it's happening on purpose, and it's happening with reason.
And giving them that time to think, giving those guided questions at the beginning, they're all now focused on that one thing. They may kind of differ in some opinions, but that focus is still there. They all feel valued because now they've all had a time to think, and then they all can bring something to the table in their conversations, and that's kind of what I'm learning from it.